So welcome to Rest of Designs, guys, and in today's video it's a how-to video stroke back onto Project Freebie. I'm going to show you guys how to fit ABS onto your Mark II Golf. You can also use this kind of how-to video, you can also do it more or less, you can mount it on a Mark I Golf, or even if you're going to kind of retrofit it onto your Mark III Golf. Basically from 1 to 3 you can kind of use the same system or parts of it, the wiring side and stuff. It's pretty easy. As far as the pump is concerned, I'll go into that into more detail into the video so you guys can see how that's done. And there's loads of detail here, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this system works. Now, before we get into today's video, a word from our sponsor. Here's a few items that are going to be going on the website, as well as loads of stuff that is already on the website. So I'm kind of dripping it on every week as I kind of find stuff. And this you guys have seen before, which is relay 292. These go on your Mark II C2 fuse box. You can also make it fit on a C1 fuse box or any fuse box for that matter. It's pretty simple. It's a buzzer for when you leave your lights on, you open the door, the buzzer will go off. So this is actually quite handy. These have actually been selling like hotcakes. I think I've only got 2 left, so be quick, guys. Now, one of the new items that are going on there is this is a 16 valve K-Jet metering head, hose, boot, whatever you want to call it. These are super rare, and especially in this condition. Look at that, it's not teared or anything there, where the Jubilee clips over time, over the 30 years or so, have actually worn down the rubber. Also, there's no cracks in this at all. It's in really amazing condition. There's the part number. It's 207-133-357B. So yeah, that is unfortunately not going to be so much of a deal, because to get these in this kind of condition, it's amazing. I will ship this worldwide. I think a few guys from the US have had issues. I don't know why that is, but yeah, hit me up on the kind of contact details on the website if you have problems at checkout with your shipping. Let me know. But yeah, that's going to go on there. And now this is a cut-off piece. Now I've had this laying around. I did used to sell a few of these back in the day. They come in handy, especially if you've got rust and stuff to reconstruct this, or you've had a knock. So this is a panel. It's the only one I've got left, but I can actually get hold of the other side. I can also get hold of little trim bits of cuts off cars, as long as the dimensions are not too large, more or less to this kind of size. Let me know again in the contact section on the website. And this has been sitting around for ages. I don't really do that many diesels, even though diesels are popular here in Portugal. I don't actually do them that much. I do more. I've only done one TDI, and it came in handy. I had another one laying around. So basically this is a Passat B4 pedal box. So it's got like the hydraulic clutch with the Mark III style kind of master cylinder section there, which in its previous life somebody's welded quite badly, so it has been repaired. So be aware of that. It is welded. I mean, you can just grind that down and make it look nice, but it seems functional and it works. Also, so basically if you're doing like a TDI conversion in your Mark II Golf, you take the potentiometer off the pedal box on your Mark III, you fit it onto there with this, and away you go, nice and easy. Also, if you're doing a PD conversion, you can actually utilize the Mark III potentiometer. You put it in here, change a few wires around, and it's all plug and play, and that will work on that. So depending where you're buying this from, the price it will go up for will reflect the postage and packaging. So please be aware, this weighs more than 2 kilos and the size of it. So the cost to me is going to be quite expensive to post this. So be aware when you actually do see the price, it does actually include, depending on what part of the world you are, like I said, the postage is included in the price. All right, guys, that's enough of today's sponsor. Let's get back into the video. Please check out the website, guys. As you saw, there's a few bits on there. Every week I put maybe 1 or 2 items go on there, sometimes more, sometimes less. As I'm tidying up the workshop, I kind of find bits laying around. So back on today's video, which is Project Freebie, my 1.3 to 2 litre 16 valve conversion Mark II Golf. Now, I'm going to be doing more bits on this car towards the end from now till the end of the year. I'm going to be covering a few bits that I have done, which is a suspension upgrade-ish, and as well as going to upgrade the brakes. The brakes have already gone from drums on the rear to solid 239s at the front, and I've got discs at the back with Mark IV calipers and 256 brakes at the front. Now, the reason why I've gone 256 and not 280s is because I'm running 14s on it on a daily basis, and I want to keep that as an option. And obviously going 280s, you can't do that. But I think I can get more out of these 256s, as well as when I did the rear brake conversion, the standard drum cars don't have a bias valve on the back. So if I do really slam on the brakes, the back starts to snake up. So, you know, yes, I knew I shouldn't have done that, but I also knew ultimately I would be going to the ABS setup, which you don't need with this late ABS setup. You don't need the brake bias valve on the rear. So I'm going to tell you a bit about this system. It's a pretty basic system. It's basically off the Mark III Golf. Also comes on some of the Passats, the B3s and the B4s. It's a pretty simple system. It's a standalone system. It doesn't need to be connected to the ECU in any way. So you can run it on a carburetor car, any kind of engine you want. This system is a standalone system. They do have a bit of a bad reputation of not working properly. The ABS pumps can kind of seize up and stuff. But mainly it's the ABS sensors. People don't scan them. It needs an ABS sensor. The wire's damaged for over the years. And you know, you have to check continuity or repair the wiring that goes to the sensors. But my personal thoughts on this is I fitted it to a few cars, to a few customers' cars, and they actually love the system, the security it gives in the wet. You know, you're not going to be panicking. You're going to lock up the front and actually end up gaining speed and hitting into the back of someone. And it's definitely worthwhile having. That's why so many cars, or basically every single car produced nowadays, has ABS. And now to do this conversion, you're going to need everything basically. You need the full loom, which really isn't a lot, the ABS pump, the bracket. You don't need to use this setup, which is the 10-inch brake servo for the ABS. You can use the original 9-inch one. You might have to adapt the bracket. It also doesn't need to sit like this. If you look at right-hand drive cars, the brake servo sits on the left of the engine bay as you look at it, and then this is actually remote on the other side of the car. So you could actually have this hidden somewhere. You don't have to have it so close. They've just done this for packaging. It suits me fine. I'm going to keep it as it is. On one of the cars that I did, which is the GTD TDI that belongs to Rubin, I actually hid this in the inner wing on the driver's side on the left-hand drive car, so you couldn't see it. So it actually runs that, and it runs a check light, the original Mark III kind of check light. I stripped it down and put it in one of the vents. So it's pretty trick. When you turn the key, the check light comes on, then comes off. And talking about check lights, look what I found. I have found a Mark II original ABS check light, thingamajig check light basically. So it's pretty cool. I'm hoping this will integrate with this system. I don't see why it shouldn't, but time will tell. Hopefully, so I'll just turn the ignition on, it'll come off, it'll cycle through it, and then switch off. And then when there is a fault, it'll come on, and I know I've got a fault with my ABS. And then you've only got literally 3 or 4 wires here, which is basically communication wire, ignition 12, another ignition 12, and another communication wire that actually goes to the lights. Pretty simple really. It's just power and earths and stuff. It's nothing really. The way I like to do it is just actually de-pin it. That's why I took the whole plug from the scrapyard instead of me just doing that. I can just de-pin it and put it in the places so it looks as original as possible. All right guys, so now let's move over to the car that's behind on the ramp. Yes, there's a ramp now in the workshop. So there you have it guys. I've actually finally got myself a ramp. It took ages. This has been on back order should I say, for at least 3 or 4 months. And they've actually come finally and fitted it this week. So I've had a little play with it. It's like a new toy. I can't believe I actually have a ramp now in this amazing workshop. But yeah, Project 3B. If you haven't seen this car before, check out the playlist. There's loads of stuff on here. So as you can see, on these left-hand drive cars, it's almost as congested as the right-hand drive cars, because you've got the expansion bottle here, and obviously that sits kind of snuggles right into there. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is probably just going to remove the expansion bottle and actually do the wiring first. So I'm going to get that side of it done. So the coolant bottle's out the way. I'm going to make myself a little bit more space by removing this bracket as well. Right, so I've had a look now on my particular vehicle because I've got the standalone. And I've kept some of the wiring loom separate. I actually kept kind of the engine harness side of it separate to the engine loom for the ECU separate. So I've actually got out of the grommets they're all taken up actually. So the bottom one is for the ECU, the top grommet is for the headlight loom, and the second one is actually just for like the starter motor, and the ones for the dash, temperature and bits and bobs. So unfortunately I can't use the original grommet. Now the Mark II, the next decent sized grommet is one right there, but I'm not going to fit the plugs through it. So what I'm going to do is I've actually depinned the loom, as you can see here, taking all the plugs off it so I can squeeze these wires through. Also going to have to depin them as well, and remove this grommet unfortunately, or cut it off, shrink it down. Isn't ideal, but it's the only option I've got. So let me just quickly depin these ones as well. Now what I'm going to do is, this is to show you some of the wiring we're going to do. So this is plug D, and it's a pin 7, which is this one, this black and yellow wire. I'm going to depin this, and we're going to put that into my loom, because this is the power supply to activate it. Okay, so here at the car, I've already loosened off the lock and unplugged it, and it goes, like I said, into plug D, pin 7. Okay, so that's in. Also, what I've also done is up here, hopefully you can see, I've already put in the pins back in to the main power ones with new fuses. These are actually easier to see if they're blown or not. This type of fuse, and that will get cable tied to the back there. This one has got fed straight to there, so I can plug this one back in now, and then find the other end of this, which should be around the back there. I think I can see it already. Is that it from the loom? Alright, so next thing that I've done, which is plug W, which is a 6-pin plug, and location 2, which is the warning one, which is grey and white, and then run power 1, which is this black and red wire, goes into pin 3, and that's all you need to do for that one. And that's it. Now the only thing I've got left is gonna be this grey and white comms wire. Now for this you're gonna have to run an OBD2 plug. That will need to be done, especially if the light comes on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for the time being, come back to that once I've actually got it all up and running, and make sure the light switches on and switches off. Now this is plug X, which originally should only have 2 wires on your Mark II Golf, which is this grey and black one, which is basically the warning light for the oil level, brake oil level, and when the handbrake's actually on. Now this is where this comes in. This is the same plug, as you can see. This should be basically a swap, like for like. Because I use this a lot, I thought I'd actually print them all out and put them on the poster. I've got the CE2 one there, gonna get the CE1 done as well, all in a frame. Right, so that basically covers the fuse box side of it. The only 2 plugs that are left would be the communication wire, which I'm gonna leave for the time being, which is to wire into an OBD2 plug, because I don't have that. And then this wire, which I assume is for the ABS pressure switches on the older style ABS system. I'm hoping this can either be left like this, or maybe just earthed out, and it will sort out the light. Hopefully the light won't come on. I'll see if it is this or not. So those are the 2 plugs that could be left disconnected, but this is not from the ABS module itself. This is more from this original kind of light system that I'm using for the Mark II. From that side, that's just only the communication wire. So all the ABS side is all plugged in. Now, here in the engine bay, there's only 2 to put in, which is earth, which is going to go to the earth point there on the battery, and the positive will just go here on the positive terminal. So pretty straightforward. Power and the earth to that earthing point just there by the battery. So now that's kind of the pump wiring done. From that side, got to run now these 2 wires to the rear of the car at the back of the seat. So let me just quickly take off these trims, run it up under the seat. You gotta love these seats, right? So I've run the 2 ABS wires even behind the insulation where they should be, all clipped in all the way along. I've run it through, I've already tucked up and already done those little trims there. And also the Mark II actually already has the holes for the ABS sensor at the back, and they've actually put in already, because when I did the disc conversion I put some stub axles. Now let me show you on the bench what you need to actually do the rear ABS setup. This is going to be your brake setup at the rear if you've got discs, and this is what you need to do to have the ABS. So I'm going to show you a stub axle here. This is potentially what would come on your Mark II GTI, especially if it's an early car. You're not going to have a hole here, and there's a hole missing here, which actually where the ABS sensor goes. So if your stub axle is like this, unfortunately you need to get a late spec, but I think if you buy any aftermarket stub axle, they all come now with the ABS sensor. They're pretty inexpensive, about between 20 and 30 pounds or euros, these stub axles with the hole, or you can get them from a Seat Ibiza or a Mark III Golf. The stub axles on the rear are all exactly the same. You know, 5100 GTI, 8 valve, VR6, 1.6 Golf Mark III, that's got rear discs at least. It needs to have rear discs. The stub axles are all the same, and it'll have the hole for the ABS sensor, and the hole will actually look like something like this one. This is off a later car, ignore this, but you'll have like a little hole there. That's what you're missing, a little hole and a little screw to actually hold the ABS sensor in its place. Discs. Discs, you don't need to buy new ones if you already have a set of discs on the rear. All you need to do is get one of these, which is the ABS ring for the rear. This hasn't been opened actually. That's what it looks like. And it literally just presses on. Literally just lightly tap it on, boop, goes on, and that's it, really easy. And the ABS sensor picks up this ring on the rear. So that's what you need to do to have the ABS on the rear. Now let's move on to the front of the car, and I can show you guys what you need for the front of the car to ABS sensor, and let's plug these sensors into the hubs. So now that we have the back covered, it's time to do the front. So this driver side one looks like it's gonna be a perfect size. For some reason, the passenger side one is absolutely really long on the Passat. Yes, the car's a bit wider, but it went some convoluted way. But yeah, let's get this up. So first things first, if you look on the wheel arch here, there is actually a location for it to go through. So you can just make it out there where the grommet needs to be pushed through. So now on the front, you need 2 sensors. They're actually sided. My hubs actually didn't have the sensors in them. So as you can see, that's the location where the sensor goes. And there's the ring, the ABS ring that comes on the actual hub. Now, if you don't have that, unfortunately, it isn't like the rear, we can just push them on. You're gonna have to change the bearing and actually buy a stub axle or a hub, whatever you want to call it, that actually has the ABS ring on it. There's no shortcut for that, unfortunately, like there is on the rear. So now I'm gonna also run the wires through, and they're a bit longer than they were maybe on the Mark II. Put a little P-clip there to secure it on. There you go, all plugged in. That's both sides done now. So that's basically the wiring side of it done. Put the wheels on, drop it off the ramp, and then actually get round to showing you guys what's needed to actually mount the unit itself. Right. So I've made life easier for myself, and I've removed the clutch master cylinder, which is just a clip and 2 10mm. Also removed the coil. Emptied out the bottle. And also here's a little tip as well, because we're gonna have to modify some of these brake lines to fit. Now this one, I don't know if you're gonna see it on there. There we go, turned off the light. All right, and also I've marked up the brake lines. Now this is actually 2 circuits. This isn't for the front and this isn't for the rear. They actually work in a cross thing. So this one, you can quite easily see, goes to the left front. So that must mean then that that one goes to the rear right. And then on this other circuit, I can see this one kind of goes down, but I can tell because it's on this back circuit here, I can tell that this is the right front. That means then that this is the left rear, because we need to label it up, because we're gonna have to change the angle and the fittings on these as well, on a few of these. So that's why I kind of marked them up, already loosened them all off. And there's a little clip here that holds, this connects the servo shaft to the pedal, and then you've got these 4 13s, 1, 2, 1 up there. I don't know if you're able to see it, focus into it, just around the back there, and then another one just up there. All right, let's get to it. Let's remove that clip first. So I've loosened off those 3 or 4 13s, and as you can see, it's loose. So here we have the 9-inch servo that came out of the car and the 10-inch ABS setup. Now, European cars or left-hand drive cars come with this 10-inch servo. You can also use the 9-inch one, you just have to adapt the bracket slightly. UK cars actually have ABS with the 9-inch servo. I think I've said that already earlier on in the video. So you can use both if you want. The only reason why I'm just going for the full setup here is because actually in Portugal it's actually quite hard to get a brake servo with only two outlets. They've always got 4. They don't come with the little blankers that you can put inside them. UK cars actually only have 2, because then the circuit gets split along the bulkhead somewhere else to do that cross hatch, that cross section like I showed you with the left and the right and the front and back and stuff. But yeah, UK cars normally have servos only have 2 outlets. So much like the ABS one. Now the reason the ABS one is I was a bit reluctant to fit it is because if you look, the orientation is also different on where the bolt holes go. So if you imagine this is a clock, basically the bolts sit between 3 and 9 o'clock, whereas on the ABS servo they sit at 6 and 12 on this one. UK cars can actually sit between, I think it's 4 and 8. They sit in different positions. So yeah, the servos are actually not interchangeable. The master cylinders, sorry, are not interchangeable between non-ABS and ABS. All right, so that's ready to go in basically. This one's actually still got the pin on it. Let me take that off. And we can slide this, squeeze this into there, and then work out where the brake lines need to go, and also mess around with some of the brake lines. I need to adapt them, but we'll get onto that once this is bolted in. So it's in. It's definitely a tight squeeze on this 16 valve. As you can see, it's definitely very congested in this area here. Now, one thing I didn't realize was what a mission this was. This was absolutely a mission, especially getting this clutch master cylinder on. As you can see, it literally doesn't clear the bigger 10-inch servo. Now, I didn't realize that actually the ABS cars have a totally different shape. So if I ever need to replace that, this is going to be mission part 2, but it was actually a mission to get it in there. And unfortunately, in doing so, I also broke the original clutch pipe that I had that went from one to the other. So I've gone through my stock, found another one. Just going to clean this up, give it a bit of paint before I put it on. And at that point, be ready to actually put some fluid in it and bleed the system up. And 2 of the pipes weren't long enough. So these 2 ones were, these weren't. So I kind of made out of copper, cut them shorter because they were literally like about this much too short. So I cut them back, I flared it, and I put a joiner. So I've got 2 joiners at the bottom here. Right, so the tight squeeze, but I've got the clutch pipe in. Even this accelerator cable comes really close. The speedo cable comes really close. Oh, actually, I need to do the brake warning sensor. So let me depin it and swap that around and get that into there. So this was the original Mark II internals. I can see it was already being repaired, and the light didn't actually work for the ABS, and the handbrake one also didn't work. So obviously there was an issue with it. I did try to change these bulbs, and even still doesn't seem to work. I think some of the tracks are burnt out and stuff, so I kind of gave up on that. All right guys, so basically I've improvised now here. What I've done is I've used the original Passat warning indicator, and I've disabled the airbag, took the bulb out for the ABS, extended it on 2 to 2 wires, and I've just used some dashboard bulbs and I've glued them into there so that I've got the ABS warning light and also the handbrake and brake fluid warning level on there as well now. So it's kind of improvised, and what I've done is also just to make my life easier, because if you take the dash out for some reason, you're not going to take off all of this stuff all the way to the fuse box. I've just put 2 standard VW kind of plugs, and they're opposite, so you can't get them mixed up with which light does what. So now let's put this into the car. So finally got the car on the floor and all back together again. And putting the expansion bottle on was a little bit of a mission actually. Had to push this pipe that goes down to the brake master cylinder down a little bit so it doesn't touch. Also had to re-drill the holes or elongate the holes so it actually sits maybe about 5 to 10 mil slightly taller, doesn't touch on the bonnet, because somehow on the Mark II with this bigger 10-inch servo, this kind of stuff, it's really tight. But it all clears, plugged it all in. All right guys, so the moment of truth, let's see if I'm lucky, if they're gonna come on and it turns off. Basically what should happen is I cycle the ignition, both lights should come on because the handbrake's on, ABS light should come on and then switch off. So let's see what it does. Okay, so that works perfectly. So if I take the handbrake off now, yep, perfect. Let's try that again. All right, so I'm really quite lucky that the ABS system's working. The car did take it off, seemed like it was a really clean car. It was a shame to actually see it in the scrapyard. Does really seem odd sitting in this Mark II now with ABS and heated seats and height adjustable, electric mirrors, electric windows, and a 6-speed gearbox. This is quite nice to be in this Mark II with the Recaro's 6-speed box and all these little bits and pieces. All right guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, check out the website,